All right. We are here on the How to Buy a Home In podcast, and we are featuring Driftwood, Texas. So, really cool place. I'm happy to be here today. We've got Molly Andrews with Bray Real Estate, Kristen Campos, our local lender, mortgage advisor, and Paul Guerrero with Allstate Insurance. So we're going to go and talk about today's market. We're going to talk about Driftwood, Texas, and we're going to talk about how to buy a home in Driftwood, Texas. So I'm going to start it off with Molly. Yes. Let's just get to know you and kind of know your background and experience. So tell us a little bit about yourself and why did you become a real estate agent?
Yes. Well, I'm honored to be here. First of all, this is where I live. So I jumped on this opportunity. So thank you.
You're welcome.
But yes, real estate has become one of my passions too. So I really love building relationships with my clients. And I was actually an elementary education teacher before this.
Okay.
And I've never been in sales. I still don't feel like I'm in sales.
Yeah.
It's more about like forming a good relationship. I understand the importance of communication. So I was a teacher for 8 years. I've been dabbling in both real estate for 3 years and then took the jump this August to do full-time real estate.
I don't know if you read my badge, but it says home therapist.
Yes.
So if you're a school teacher, right, you've got to deal with a lot of emotional kids.
Yes.
Welcome to real estate. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So you're going to be
more emotional parents than kids.
More emotional parents than kids. They kind of hit that like weird spot. So what is it that makes you different as a realtor?
I feel like real estate is based on life experiences. So whether it's helping someone that just got married and they want to build their first house together or buy their first house together, or they're having a baby so they want to have a bigger house, or they're a single independent woman, they can buy their own flowers in their own house, whatever. Or a bachelor that just wanted to build equity for his future. So I like tapping into each person and just getting to know them and finding what best fits their lifestyle.
No, great answer.
Yeah.
I think I've had another agent on another podcast who was like, the first thing I want to know is what is their why? Like what's their purpose in life? What do they like to do? And then we're going to go find their home.
Yes.
And I think that's an important thing to go after. And you very well connected. And teachers have that servant's heart. So you're just right there with wanting to know that. So do you deal with more buyers than sellers or okay. So tell me about onboarding someone. So do you make sure that they're pre-qualified? Do you
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I think at first I didn't realize that. I was just like, I'm here to help everybody. And then, some time is wasted because everybody thinks that, who knows what you're looking at, and you don't really truly have a sense of what you're looking at. But I would say that I'm open to both. I've realized selling is a lot more emotional than buying sometimes. It has its pros and cons, but I have literally sat at a table with my sellers before and cried just because they've had so many memories in that home. I'm like, it's okay. It's a new chapter. You're going to have so much equity off this. You bought this 25 years ago in Austin. Like, you're good. So I'm open to both. I would say because I was a teacher, I feel like I have a little bit of teacher heart still in me. I like working with first-time home buyers because I really have immersed myself in real estate now and feel confident in what I'm doing, and I can walk them through every step so they feel that same amount of confidence too, and they're not blinded by.
So when you go through that process, do you obviously you want to know about them and what's going on, and you have that logical conversation. So if there's been pre-approval and you're going, so is it about location? Is it about size? And you're asking those questions to them. So how do you put together that list to make sure that when you're out there showing, because they're going to say, hey, the kitchen's important to me, or the backyard, or the husband's like, I want a big shop or a garage.
Yes.
So is that?
I break it down to their Starbucks order, honestly.
Okay. Their Starbucks, tell me about that.
Like, just getting to know them is so important. And so it literally is a question I ask on my buyer's presentation of like, what's your Starbucks order? Because you're going to get to know me, and we're going to be going to see a lot of homes. And so making them just feel comfortable and happy. It should be fun.
Yeah.
A lot of people have viewed it, because it is the biggest financial decision of their life, as something like stressful and all the paperwork and and I'm like, let's make this exciting. You know, this is a huge step for you, a new chapter. So I get down to people are never annoying. I'm like, the more you tell me, the less I waste your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So being very detailed is awesome. I love when I have those clients. They think they're overbearing me, and I'm like, no, you're giving me more boxes to plug in the MLS so I can send you what you want, and we can be ready to go view those homes.
And that's a great way to sort of weed out sort of like going and showing a whole bunch of houses. So I have to ask this question. I always ask this. What's the most amount of houses that you've ever showed one couple?
I'm scared my clients are watching. No, I don't care. Like, I honestly mean that, because if we do go see a lot of homes, and there are so many beautiful homes in Austin, and they don't feel it, then buy. Yeah. Like, I want them to be happy. I don't want them to ever have buyer's remorse. I don't believe in it, because I'm like, you're building your future. And and I run comps, and so I make sure that we're priced fairly of what we're offering. So it is a solid choice. So it honestly, I truly mean this, it does not matter to me how many homes we view. They have to feel it.
Yeah, they got to have
home.
that feeling. When I walk
their birthdays,
it's like,
it's their
this
Thanksgiving,
is the one.
Christmas.
It's funny, I hear agents say that a lot. They'll walk in and they're like, this is it. And they haven't even seen the whole house. They just have that feeling.
Yes.
Right? They have that feeling. Like, this is the one. And like, boom, there you go. And then you're like, yes. All right, now I got to call for an inspection. No.
Exactly. And y'all are awesome. You're on it the next day.
So just really fast, tell me what's your craziest story in real estate?
Ooh, this is going to gross y'all out.
Oh, no, not at all. We're inspectors. We've seen some pretty gross things.
True. Well, I was in a home one time, and the pictures were beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to make an offer.
Right.
I already knew it, and I was having the feeling for the client already. And we walk in, and it was not the same. And it was a hoarding situation.
Oh, boy. Those are always
And there
fun.
was glass jars near the sink. Okay. And I am not sure if they were bodily fluids or what we were looking at. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah,
all
some
right.
nasty.
We see it all. We see it all,
go.
don't we?
It's
all
not
right.
here.
So we're about to take a break. Before I do, I want to talk about Buck's Backyard. So this place is near and dear to your heart. So here in Driftwood, there's Buck's Backyard. Tell me a little bit about this place.
I kind of don't want to, because I think it's a hidden gem. No, not really. It's awesome. Austin is the music capital of the world.
Yeah.
And this place delivers. So not only do they have really cool bands that come here, big names, but they also give back to the community. They have helped with so many people that, whether it's a child that has had cancer, and they're bringing the community together to help them raise money for their funds, but also having like Chris Stapleton's band come, the Steel Drivers, in a couple of months. So they have a huge stage in the back where it's just open space. It truly feels like the backyard feel, but it's just awesome.
Very cool. So you have this stage here, right?
Yes.
But then I'm looking at this huge outdoor theater back there that looks amazing. So we're gonna take a short little break. I'm gonna we're gonna scroll through some pictures of Buck's Backyard, kind of check out the food and the venue, and we'll be right back. How to Buy a Home in podcast, and we're featuring Driftwood, Texas, and we always have our realtor. So thank you, Molly. We're going to come back to her and really talk and dig into Driftwood, but I always hand it over to a real estate professional, somebody that's involved in the real estate transaction. So we've got Kristen Campos. She's our local mortgage advisor. Welcome to the show, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
I am originally from the Rio Grande Valley. I actually moved up to Austin for school, and then moved back home, and I was like, oh, I miss Austin. So now I'm back.
Yeah.
My background is actually in speech therapy.
Okay.
So I did that for
Don't make fun of me.
I did that for about 12 years and jumped into lending about a year and a half ago and love it. I actually come from a sales background.
Okay.
But my parents would build spec homes and sell them growing up, but I just could not. I have so much respect for realtors because they can paint the picture and really visualize it for the client. And I'm more on the financing side. So really excited about helping clients on making a big financial decision.
So, and so you know, I always kind of with lenders, it's like people have to get like financially naked in front of you because all the bad things that that's happened in their past, you're like,
yeah.
Tell me about this. So how do you approach that?
Yeah. So, you know, one of the things with lending, it's having to build rapport over the phone really fast, really quickly, right? And that just comes based off of transparency. And I'll tell them right off the top, like, hey, I'll be totally transparent with you on this process if you can do the same for me, right? And the more that you can tell me up front, the better I can help your situation and find out if it's the right time for you to personally buy in this market.
So everybody always asks you this. I know they do, and I've got to ask it too. So we're filming this right now, February 2023. Interest rates are all the talk, right? Because the market has shifted. Yeah. It's pivoted. And I personally feel like a really good agents that have been in this a long time, they kind of, you know, 2 years ago, they were like, just let's sit this out for a second. Yeah. You know, if anybody was like on the fence, because they couldn't compete with crazy things that were happening, right? But now people are kind of like, all right, so what's going on? So talk to me about interest rates and what your take is on that right now.
Yeah, interest rates are one of my favorite things to talk about. My whole brand is based off of mortgage literacy. So the more that I can educate somebody on that topic, the better, because I think people just ask that question just because it's a common question to ask if they're getting into home buying, especially for first-time home buyers. Hey, tell me what the interest rate is, you know?
Yeah.
And it's not really about the interest rate. It's really about their affordability on a monthly basis.
Okay.
And then we can talk about interest rates. And so whenever I'm talking to a client for the first time over the phone, that's a hot question that they ask. And I'll say, you know, interest rates change every 5 minutes. It's based off the bond market. So whatever I quote you today may or may not be true by the time you're ready to go under contract and close, right? Yeah. So the reality is we got to figure out if this is a great time for you to personally buy. So tell me about your monthly budget. What are you comfortable with spending on a monthly mortgage payment? And then we work our way backwards from there, because I mean, about a year ago, they were 3.5%, 3.3, 3.5. And rates in the twos was a historical anomaly. It's not happening again. That happened because of COVID, right? To sustain the market at the time and continually having the purchasing of homes, right? And then now interest rates are having to work with getting back to a normal place so that way we can have a healthy housing market.
Yeah. So I have my 80s Trapper Keeper that I've saved.
I love it.
And it's still in great. But in the 80s, right, and I was obviously elementary, middle school when I had this Trapper Keeper, but interest rates were 18 and 20%, and they were like really high. So you talk to some old school real estate agents, and they're like, back in my day,
absolutely.
these rates were this much. And they were still selling houses, and they were still getting after it. So I think the way you approach that is beautiful, because you're like, tell me about what you want to spend, right? And then we're going to pre-qualify you that, and then, you know, now you know how to go show houses, right? Let's talk about how much money down do people need?
That's a great question. So a lot of people think that you need 20% down to purchase a home. Now, especially if you're a first-time new home buyer, you actually only need 3% down, depending on if you're going to go with a conventional loan product or an FHA loan product. FHA is actually 3.5% down. Okay. And if you're VA, you actually need 0% down.
Yeah.
So it's a huge for veterans to start. There's different home hacking things that you can do as a veteran to create some wealth with and use that as a benefit.
That's awesome. Yeah. We definitely love supporting our troops. We have the Hometown Heroes discount for teachers, military, firemen, the whole shooting match. So I have to ask, what is your craziest story?
Oh, that's a good question. So actually, it was one of my very first transactions, and you work with different types of sellers, right, in the industry, and it is a very big emotional decision. And so we had our scheduled closing, our scheduled time for signing, and the seller decides to go out of town at a remote location, meaning South Padre Island, which is my hometown where I'm from, right? Yeah. And decides to leave the day before. So closing was going to be, our buyers were ready to move in. They had, U-Hauls scheduled and all the things, and we weren't going to be able to close on that Friday. Ended up we did. We made it happen between different notaries and meeting expectations and getting all of the paperwork in by 3 p.m. so we could fund that day. It was a miracle. It happened, but it is a very big emotional decision. I'm like, why did you leave us? This was supposed to close.
Why?
I thought you were going to say something about someone bought a car right before closing. Something dumb like that.
That is currently happening right now. So.
Yeah, the stories we could sit around and tell. It just goes on and on. So last question. So you're a part of a real estate brokerage. What's the difference between being in retail and being with the broker?
Yeah, awesome question. So there's different types of lenders out there. So there's, your typical retail lender that might work for a Wells Fargo or a Chase. And then there's private mortgage banks. And those are retail lenders as well.
Yeah.
We're on the broker side. So we actually work with over 20 different brokers, over 20 different lenders, right? So we actually have the ability to shop the rate for you.
Yeah.
And here's a fun fact. You actually cannot lock the interest rate unless you're under contract. So prior to that, people think that that's when they should do their shopping, and it's their pre-approval shopping, and that's not it. It's when you're under contract. So we have the ability to shop that rate with over 20 different banks to make sure that the client is winning. When you give the banks an opportunity to compete, you're going to win.
That's awesome. So, and I know we just had an agent call me the other day, and they were doing a VA loan, and they were doing it through one of the big names, big box names. It starts with a C. I won't say the name, but they were being very difficult, and it was hard to really get a person on the phone. And man, they just were having just such a hard time because they were dealing with this big corporate national entity, and they just didn't care about this person. They just were like, okay, yeah, here you go. But, you have a normal consumer that's like, well, I saw this commercial and I hopped on my bank's website and like, this is what they can do. And then, you're like, oh, okay, well, that's great, but call my girl Kristen. Like, she can get you hooked up and get you going. So
best thing is to go with a local lender.
Yes. Always local lender. So there you have it. And then I hear you have a very cool event coming up. Tell me about that.
I do. It's called Valentine's Day. It started back in 2019 from an idea because I had a broken heart at the time. And so every great story. No, I'm good now. But it actually morphed into an idea of serving a community on Valentine's Day. There's no volunteering opportunity, and so I decided to create that back in 2020. And so now it's become a big thing. It's in Austin, San Antonio, and now Houston.
Wow.
And so what we do is we actually get together. There's a love lunch meal prep. So we actually prep little bags, and we take them to the homeless community. We've served over 500 love lunches. And in these bags, it's a sandwich, a chips, a bottle of water, a chocolate, and a love note in there. And then now a pair of socks. That's the most needed thing for the homeless community. So
very cool. So I'm a servant's heart. So for my birthday, we went and I made barbecue for a shelter that only services women from battered homes and children. And it was just like,
that's amazing.
You can get together with your friends and go drinking and have fun, but I'm a servant's heart that, went deep down. And so for me, just that giving back it just
absolutely
charges you up and it cleanses your soul and makes you feel real good.
Yes.
All right. Well, we're going to take a little break. We'll be right back with Paul Guerrero at Allstate. So here's some more picks from Buck's Backyard. We'll be right back. And we're back. How to Buy a Home in podcast, Driftwood, Texas. So now we are going to turn it over to our local insurance expert, Paul Guerrero. So I wanted to, first off, I had to say they just went through a big freeze here. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And so I wore my alarmist crazy suit because it was Driftwood. I didn't wear it because
in honor
of everybody having all their trees fall down. So I feel bad. I was like, man, I chose poorly. And so then somebody made the joke. It's like, well, you got a tree frog outfit on. So you got, you're like a happy guy. So welcome to the show, Paul.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for being on here. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you're related to Driftwood area.
Sure. Well, I'm a local resident here. Moved here 2 years ago to Driftwood. I'm a third-generation insurance agent. All I know is insurance. I went
So
from,
when you were a kid, did you have to answer the phone?
Yes, yes.
Oh,
When
mom had you trained to
Well, when I was a kid, my dad used to make me put flyers on people's cars and hangers in Midland, Texas, which is 110 degrees in the summertime. So I've been doing this since I was a kid. So went from Midland to Lubbock for tech, and then from tech came to Austin so I could get some culture and some trees, and started my first agency in 2004. So I've been doing this for a long time.
Right on. So, and then let's just dive straight into this. So you're with Allstate. What point do you come into the real estate transaction?
So when a house goes under contract, so in an ideal world, on day one of option period, I get involved.
Okay.
And so we do a process for realtors called a clue report and flood updates.
Okay.
There's been a lot of flood changes in the last couple of years, and we want to make sure that the rules are the same, both because the City of Austin rules are one rule and FEMA's rules are different rules. So make sure the realtor understands both processes, and then run a clue report as well, which a clue report talks about any losses the house may have had in the last 5 years. I can tell you so many circumstances where the seller forgot about a $200,000 fire claim the year before,
Whoops.
or water damage that happened the year before they thought no one would find out about. But a clue report uncovers all those opportunities. So that's where I get involved in day one of option period.
So, and because we're talking about Driftwood, I have to ask this question because I do this podcast all over Texas. So what types of weather events are going to happen, or what sort of bad things are going to happen here in this area?
The coolest thing about this area is we're like in a small pocket in Texas where nothing happens. So we don't have hurricanes like the coast does. We don't have hailstorms like Dallas does. We don't have flooding like Houston does. Austin, really, only thing we have to deal with is on average one hailstorm every 15 years is our biggest issue. And then recently, of course, we had Snowmageddon and we had Iceageddon, I guess is what we call it. So, but for the most part, this is the cheapest rates in Texas are in Austin. The average rate in Austin is like $700. On the coast, it's $2,300. In Houston, it's $3,000, and in Dallas, it's $2,100. So we have the cheapest rate because we are protected by, I guess, the hills and stuff like that.
Yeah. So if you're online, you're thinking about moving to Driftwood, know that your insurance premiums are going to be lower. There's your plus. So if you're an accountant and you're listening, you're loving this right now. You're like, I love that. That's amazing.
You can afford a bigger house because your insurance is cheaper.
You're not paying as much on insurance. So let's just talk about what makes insurance rate differ from company to company.
Well, the number one factor that people don't understand when it comes to insurance is your credit score. It is the number one factor when it comes to a rate in Texas. Other states, they don't run credit, but Texas is credit-based.
Okay.
So credit's number one. So having a good credit score is the biggest factor. Number two is a roof age, because we have a storm once every 15 years. So roof age is number two. And then it kind of goes from there, multiple policy, like having my home, your cars with us, stuff like that. But the two biggest factors are credit and the roof.
Okay. So credit and roof. So is that because she's over here, running her credit report to get the deal done? When you pull a credit report, is that going to affect?
No, that's a really good question, because she would kill me if I was pulling actual hard score. So we do what's called a soft pull.
Okay.
Insurance is a soft pull, so it does not affect the credit score. It does not affect the buying process, or she would murder me.
Yes,
so it is a soft pull, so it does not affect anything. But it is an insurance history, so it's a lot of factors that come into the rate. But the credit is the number one factor. But we don't do a hard pull; we do a soft pull.
Soft pull. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then just going back to that clue report, I think that's an important thing to know, that you said you like to get involved day one, option period one. Let's say that you have that house where somebody said, hey, I forgot to tell you about that thing. How do you overcome that? How does that work? Because now she's got to go back and say, hey, there was this claim and we paid out $200,000, but it doesn't look like they did any repairs.
Correct.
What happens
So
there?
I like to say I'm a drama freak. I have 4 daughters, and so I just don't do drama. I like drama-free closings as well. So the more research we can do on a house up front, the better. But I can tell you so many situations where someone said no losses, and they had 2 water losses from the last couple storms, and now the rate goes from $700 to $2,100. Now we have a DTI issue. Now we may not be able to afford this house. We might lose our option period, stuff like that. So the more you know up front, the more research we can do up front, the less drama we have, and the easier the closing is, the better the closing is. They come back to us 5 years from now because everything went so smooth.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's so important to do that.
So that clue report, is that something that Molly's sending them your way, or is that something that Kristen's sending them your way, or who sends you?
The realtor. The realtor is the one who sends an email. Our process is a realtor CCs us saying, hey, Paul's going to do a clue report for us for free, and we're going to do some research in the house, and he's going to get back to us, let us know. Now, the big deal for me is I never call the client and say, hey, I did a clue report and there's 3 losses in this house, because that can cause drama. We make a phone call to the realtor.
Yeah.
We let them know what's going on. That way they can deliver to the person and let them know, hey, this is what happened. We're gonna do some research. We'll get back with you on that. So we try to prevent the client knowing about it up front. We let the realtor, because the realtor knows a client. The realtor knows if they're a lot of drama or if they're not drama. They know the situation. And she mentioned first-time home buyers. A first-time home buyer will pull out a contract because one thing went wrong. So we don't want that to happen. We want to make sure we know all the stuff before we get to that situation.
So with this recent ice storm that just happened, and Paul, as we were setting up for this podcast, he was, taking phone calls. So I just have to ask, like, what's going on? So all these people that are calling you with this recent ice storm, how do you?
Well, number one, I've got blisters on my hands from my own personal chainsaw at my house. But the biggest misconception people have is my neighbor's tree fell on my house.
Okay.
They're responsible for the damage. They're not. You are responsible for the damages. When your neighbor's tree falls on your house, you are responsible because it was caused by an act of God, which is the ice storm, which caused a tree to fall on your house.
Right.
Now, there are some, if that tree was dead and we knew it was dead and it fell on your house, now your neighbor's responsible for it. But the biggest misconception was that thing fell on my house, and therefore I'm responsible for it. But a lot of people had trees that just fell down in their yard and didn't do any damage, and insurance doesn't get involved in that situation. That's just part of owning a tree. But we get involved whenever the roof is actually damaged, or the structure, the fence, the back house, the garage. When that is damaged, that's when insurance gets involved and opens up opportunities for, lost food spoilage because we had no power for 5 days. It opens up opportunity for, I can't live in my house for a week, so now we're paying for a hotel for a week. So it opens up more stuff when the actual structure is damaged.
Yeah. So, and you're bringing up great sort of like, wow, that I didn't think about that. I didn't, but you're dealing with that all the time. So I was just over listening to your phone call earlier, but somebody was making a claim or doing something, and you have like you guys have like automated system where it's like, go here, check this, and we can get that person there, and you guys are really just boom, Johnny on the spot helping them out.
I really love the fact that with Allstate we have a dedicated team. It's 1-800-54-STORM, and they are dedicated just to this storm alone. So they bring in people, like I have people from Florida coming in right now, adjusters from Florida, adjusters from California. They're all coming in right now to deal with this storm with people. So we can issue a check quickly and get people back in their house and get them up to date. So I love the fact that we have, Allstate's got the resources to bring in things to pay claims really quickly.
That's amazing. What is the best advice that you can give a homeowner for protecting all of your assets? So let's just say there's a house fire, it burns down.
Yeah. Well, the best advice, that's a two-part thing. So the best advice I can give someone when it comes to being a homeowner, especially a new home buyer, is treat your house like you treat your car. Get the oil changed every 6 months. Have a professional walk that roof every year. Have someone make sure the caulking around the windows is taken care of. In Texas, we have such extreme heat. The caulking around, around the pipes just disintegrates over time. And most claims that I deal with that are water claims is just the caulking around it has disintegrated and water's seeping through. Now we've got water in the roof and stuff like that. But treat your house like you do your car. Have it maintained every 6 months. Have a professional walk it to make sure that you're keeping up with it, because that will prevent a $5,000 deductible be paid because we've got water damage and stuff like that. So yeah.
So and when you're telling clients, like, how much do you cover your house for, like contents? Is there any advice you have for like?
Oh yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because recently here in Buda, one of my best friend's houses caught on fire, and he bought it. It's a Lennar house. He bought it for $500,000. 2 years ago, caught on fire in February of this past year. It cost $790,000 to rebuild his house.
Wow.
So understanding inflation and understanding your replacement costs on your policy, because if the policy says $600,000, the max they're going to pay is $600,000. The customer now is $190,000. they have to mortgage on top of their house if they're not insured properly. So really having a professional to really look over your insurance policy and understand inflation and understand that the cost to rebuild has skyrocketed.
Yeah.
Parts, labor, everything is skyrocketed. And if you don't keep up with your insurance policy and you're with that 1-800 company, they're just going to renew your policy every single year. They don't really care because it's on you to know your policy and understand you're properly covered. So really understanding replacement costs and understanding how things have increased and keeping up with it is vital to your policy.
That's so good.
Awesome. Great advice. So I ask everybody, like, what's your craziest story?
I had this poor kid back when I first started. I came in, it was 2005, 2007. He bought a brand new Camaro. And he was so proud of his brand new Camaro. And he got insurance on it. He was a young kid. A premium was so high, but he was proud of his Camaro. Well, the very next year, the Camaro body style changed. And he was so upset about it that he got a bag. He got a pillowcase. He put a bunch of golf balls in there, and he beat his car to death. Yes. And so then he claimed hail damage, and he wanted the car to be totaled out. And unfortunately, the strikes on his car were like perfect dents, and they literally had the divots from the golf ball in the thing. And Allstate tried to let this kid, hey kid, listen, this is obviously not hail damage. And he was adamant there's hail damage. He's like, there hasn't been a hail damage in 2006.
Yeah.
And this is a 2006 car. And we had to go through all these steps. And kid finally admitted, we're like, listen, this is insurance fraud. You could go to jail for this.
Yeah.
And finally he admitted what happened, but it was clear of what happened.
Oh
and so this poor
God.
kid has to drive around this brand new 2006 Camaro with hail damage on it forever. So that was one of the crazy. I've got so many crazy stories, but that's one of my funniest ones that happened. So yeah.
Wow. So, and I know you live here kind of local in the area, and we're about to dive into this, and we're going to come back and really dive into Driftwood proper. So Molly's going to, and I want kind of everybody to talk about like the cool things that are happening in Driftwood. So How to Buy a Home In podcast. We'll be right back. So we're back, How to Buy a Home In podcast, and we're in Driftwood, Texas. Now we're really going to dive down and get into Driftwood, Texas. So I wanted to talk about your area specifically. Sorry, my speech pathology. She was looking at me. I was like, I'm going to say something dumb, and I did. So Creek of Driftwood. So this is your sort of area. Talk to me about it.
All right. Well, kind of goes back to relationships. I came into contact with the sales agent there. Her name is Casey, and she works for Campos. She had visited me at an open house, and she invited me, and I live in Driftwood, and it too is a little hidden gem on Onion Creek Road, but there's 73 homes in there, and they are beautiful.
Okay.
You're on your acre lot. I got to know her. I just went and visited her, and it was just like talking like she's my friend, know now. But
and what year approximately are these houses?
That was this. They came out like this November. Don't quote me on that, but it's new.
So relatively new construction.
Yes, within this past year. And she invited me to the kickoff of their model home, which was a canned food drive. So I was like, yep, let's get some cans. Packed up my daughter. She's with me sometimes, depending on the day. And we went and visited, and I really just got to know about the community. There's 73 homes in there. There were homes built prior to these new developments.
Yeah.
But so they start in the high 900s, but you're able to have that true custom home building experience, but also options.
Is it the same builder, or is it multiple builders?
So it's the same builder, and you're able to go in there. They have 3 different interior designs that you can choose from.
Okay.
And I'm like, just 3, because I'm really big into that. I love like customizing things. And she's like, oh, but you can mix them and match them. And then if you don't like that, then you can just go to the design studio and do it yourself. And I'm like, this is what people want, you know? So maybe you need that guidance to build, to pick your color schemes.
Yeah.
Or maybe you have a vision of what you want, and it's just your little piece of, hill country.
Yeah.
You know, you have your own little.
I think some people, because when we're inspecting the house, we're like, hey, this switch, you know, it's going to go to a fan, but the builder just put in a basic light for now because they want you to be able to pick out your stuff. However, some builders that have that, like, you can go to our design center and go ahead and pick out whichever fans and pick out the stuff. So it just, you know, depends on however you want to approach it.
Right.
So what are the borders, or what kind of towns or areas are around bordered that creek of Driftwood?
So it's funny when you were talking, you were like, Driftwood, it's right next to Dripping Springs.
Yeah.
So often people get them confused, but I'm like, it's separate. But that's what's so awesome. You're able to get into the city quickly, but Dripping Springs has so many fun, cool things to it, and so does Driftwood. So Driftwood has... If you're a barbecue fan, you got to go to Salt Lick. All you can eat. Be rolled out of there when you leave because you're gonna eat way too much.
We always go to Salt Lick every time we go. You wait like a while for it. But it's
be
well
prepared.
worth the wait.
Yes. And then there's so many vineyards that have popped up. So I'm a member of Driftwood Estates Winery, which is beautiful. You drive up on a hill, you feel like you're like, I don't know, in California or France. Like so
wine country.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so there's that. There's Fall Creek Vineyards. There's Dukeman Family Winery, which is connected to the Trattoria Lucina, which also has amazing wines. So it's just kind of a little. If you've been to Fredericksburg, it's kind of a different scale of that.
Okay, very
that
cool.
They've created there.
Now let's just talk about schools, like
Yes.
like high school mascots. Like how big is the school?
Yes.
Like
So that I'm passionate about this because I was a teacher.
You're the teacher.
Yeah, I don't think I would live here if I didn't love the schools. And I've met if that's one part of my business, that's the heart of my business is helping. I love being able to help the teachers because I was a teacher here.
Yeah.
And so I have the most respect for our school systems here. And the people I know are wonderful people. And that's what it's all about is making sure, that's why I'm here. I have a 2-year-old, so I wouldn't choose this if I didn't believe in their areas. They are building new schools. There's a new school that's right next to it, Dripping Springs Elementary.
Okay.
And then also just even into this area too, Hayes is amazing.
Okay. So the high school is Driftwood High School, or
there's
what's
not
the
a
name of the
Driftwood High School. So there's Johnson High School that is Hayes, and then there's Dripping Springs High School. So it just depends on where you're bordered
And then
at.
size-wise, and if you don't know, it's okay. But is it like a 5A, a 6A?
I believe it is 5.
So yeah, I was gonna add.
he
so
has 4 daughters, too.
I have 4
You got
kids,
4 kids.
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
so we live in Driftwood, but our kids go to Wimberley. So the really cool thing about Driftwood is some school districts feed to Dripping, some feed to Wimberley, and some feed to Hayes, which is kind of cool. So you can almost choose where you want to go. But my kids personally go to Wimberley, and Wimberley's a 4A school, and Dripping's a 5A, and then
5A.
Hayes is a 6A, I think, maybe,
Very cool.
But it's bigger.
Yeah.
It's getting bigger.
It's getting bigger,
we can say this today and then.
And then I always ask this question too, and chime in please if you know, but just tell me about some of the parks and recreational stuff, like outdoorsy kind of things that people do. Obviously, we're here at this place, and they've got a big place, but what other kind of like parks or what's sort of some of the draw?
I feel like what's so cool is you have your own little park. There's so much wildlife in this area. We buy corn. Personally, like we go to the feed store, at least once every 2 weeks or so, and they become our pets. So my daughter gets out there and she gets her cup of corn and she goes and throws it in the backyard, and they'll come up big bucks, just right in our backyard.
Wow.
So that's
Very
really
cool.
beautiful and fun.
Very
to see.
cool. Anything else? Parks, recreation?
Yeah, I mean, Wimberley's got a lot of stuff that I really like. Good parks, but I agree. That the cool thing about Driftwood is most of it's acreage land.
Yeah.
Most of it is back to greenbelt forever, and you have your own personal paradise out here. That's why I love it so much.
So your house is your park.
Your house is your park.
Your
Yep.
house is your park. That's
think-
very cool.
So Dreamland is also really close
Yeah.
by, and that's such a fun place. It's got mini golf and then also pickleball. It's become such a big deal lately.
Yeah.
So that's a really fun family environment too.
Okay. So, and then I always like to just, because people are thinking about moving here, like what sort of big events on an annual basis happen where it really brings the community out? And
Yeah. So I personally this year went to the Dripping Springs Pumpkin Festival, which is not that far away, and it's fun for everybody. You can see people there on their first date. You can see people there with their kids taking picture with all the pumpkins and scarecrows, and they've got a million photo ops for you. You can get drinks there. There's amazing food trucks. They had live music. So I just like doing any type of community event like that. But also going back to all the places around here, even if it's a vineyard or even if it's a distillery, it's all family friendly.
Yeah.
You all see, people with their kids there, just enjoying life with their friends. So
Very cool. So do you have anything to add to that? Like big, big events?
One of my funniest ones, when I first moved out here, Ace Hardware in Wimberley, Texas, has this really big Christmas party where like the whole town comes out to Ace Hardware and they wait in line for the discount to get Ace Hardware. And they so that's kind of funny because one of the funniest things is a small country town is Ace Hardware has the biggest party in Wimberley. But there's great, there's one of my favorite places around here is a Hay City store.
Okay.
Best margaritas in Texas by far. Really cool community, really cool atmosphere, outdoors. You let your kids run around. So like we said, your kids are welcome everywhere you go in this area, which we love.
Yeah, absolutely. Great sense of community. So, and I'm going to ask this question to kind of all of you, but what's sort of the average age of home? Like, what's the spectrum of homes that are here and?
Yeah, I've seen really it all in our neighborhood, specifically in Driftwood. There are younger families that have just come around,
right.
But then we also have the people that we call and we're like, can we borrow your tools? Whatever. So it's a mix. So and everybody is just so happy. Yeah. I would say because it's just kind of a break away from the busyness, but yet we're still able to pop back in whenever you want. So
Age of house, like what would you say?
Oh,
Oldest house? They're mostly newer houses, mostly.
Man, that's a Molly question because we moved here 2 years ago and we built from scratch. I'm seeing a lot like we mentioned, a lot of new families coming here.
Yeah.
Building new houses or buying land. So some of the land's being divided up. So a lot of new houses, but. Like we said, it's literally so many of old school Wimberley, right. Old school Driftwood, old school farms that are still here. Mm-hmm. So I think you just got a huge mix of everything. But one of my biggest drawbacks, I looked at Wimberley many years ago when I was debating on moving to San Antonio. And I went to Wimberley and I went to Driftwood and I looked around. It was all older people, older community. It felt older. But since then, everyone is moving out. People are leaving Austin and coming out to Driftwood for the schools, for the land, for the trees,
we're
for stuff
telling them
like
our
that.
secrets.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I think something that makes Driftwood and Dripping Springs, this whole surrounding area, so special is that it's kind of like the way we grew up. Where you can just walk down the street and you talk to your neighbor versus what's happening now. I think in the bigger cities where it's just a different environment. So it just makes it so special that we still have that here in Texas.
Yeah. So I want to bring it back to Buck's backyard because we're here right now. So tell me, I want to just go a little bit more about it because you were kind of talking a little bit about it. So I just want to hear some of the events that are happening, some of the things that are going on. And
yes. So we're inside right now, but the outside.
We're in front of the inside
stage. Yes, we're in front of the inside stage. Hop on stage. But they have a big area right out here that has, when they have the big namers come out, so they're having Chris Stapleton's band come soon, the Steel Drivers, Bray Bagwell, Colt Ford, Bart Crow. So just your Texas country, it's here, you know? And then also, though, with being a teacher, you hear, sad things, that have happened to kids. And they put on so many events here that have just really helped our community. Sorry, I'm emotional. Yeah. But just thinking about my 2-year-old, and I know they would do the same for her.
Yeah. And I don't know, do you know how many people you can hold back there in that? Theater?
I saw Pat Green here not too long ago, and you couldn't move. It was completely packed. So they can pack. I don't know the exact number, but I would say a couple thousand. I don't really know.
Wow.
But it's huge, and there's got a bar downstairs, a bar upstairs. They've got it all planned out here, so it's a great. But exactly same thing. I've been here personally for a friend of mine who beat cancer. I've been here for a friend of mine who passed from cancer. Yeah. And so I've been here for kids and stuff like that. So the Bucks is an amazing community event that does a great job of supporting community, and it doesn't matter if it's sad or happy,
Yeah.
they can do it all, and they do a great job of it. So yeah.
So, and you were saying like your kids, there's ballet recitals.
Yeah, I've personally been back there for ballet recitals. And
4 daughters?
There's 4 daughters. I've been
Okay.
here for dance recitals, and so yeah, they've got it all back there. So yeah, it's awesome. But which is really cool, during COVID, whenever you couldn't go to like an indoor situation,
Right.
they hosted big events out here for the kids, so that way the kids could still perform outside during COVID, and everyone could still be there. So it was really cool coming here, putting your blanket out like ACL used to be,
Yeah.
or it was ACL,
Yeah.
You used to put your blanket out, you chairs, and you'd sit back there. Back in the days, you do that here now, and you can have a great time. But they did a really good job of catering to COVID, because you could be outside.
So I just want to get an agreement. Best margarita,
Hay City Store.
Hayes City Store. Do you agree?
Let me think.
Hey Travis, I take endorsements, by the way.
Yeah.
He owns Hay
I
City.
do love Hay
Yeah.
City Story. They opened a new restaurant too in Buda called Taste, and I think
Okay.
people got a sneak peek of it yesterday. I'm really jealous. I emailed them and tried to get on the wait list. So yeah,
Cool.
I just love the localness
Yeah.
of Driftwood, because
Absolutely.
it's not chainy. You know,
Yeah.
you can really like meet the people that are allowing us to be at Bucks right now.
Yeah.
When they're closed, and they're so excited about it.
This is
you
why
know?
I do
So-
it at a local place like this, because I don't want to support the big box guy. Like I
Right.
want to know what the sense of community is like. I want to if I'm putting money towards something,
You know where it's
I want
going.
it to go towards these guys. You know, and I want to make sure that it's going there and doing the deal. So
I'm gonna go with Buck's Backyard
Bucks.
Margaritas.
Margaritas. What do you think? Best margarita.
You know, I actually haven't been to the Hayes. Was it Hayes County?
We're going after this, by the way.
But Paul was actually talking about that before this. I was like, okay, I think I gotta go over there and try it out. But also, too, local coffee shops are amazing in this area, and I feel like they're popping up more and more, and
Yeah.
and serving their community. So I would say Meridian. They're I think in Buda,
Yeah, they're in
right?
Buda.
And they are an amazing, beautiful inside, but they also do a really good job on a cup of joe. So
This is also the home of Summer Moon. If y'all know Summer Moon Coffee, it started here in this area. So yeah, now they're branched out and they're getting huge.
Getting
but Summer
big.
Moon is local to this area.
And so we're in barbecue country. So I have to ask this question. Best barbecue.
I got to go with Valentina's. Valentina's out of South Austin is my favorite. I've been going to them since they were in a trailer off of William Cannon area.
Okay.
But Valentina's is my favorite.
Valentina's.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Well, my husband's probably watching this, but my dad built him a barbecue pit, actually. So it's like a hobby of ours. It's like we take it next level. And we've actually had to bring our neighbors our barbecue too, because it's not fair when they smell it. I'm sorry. We'll bring you some ribs, I promise. There's some brisket.
their brisket.
Yeah, the brisket. Yeah, she's been to my house to have some, but love you, babe. Also, Salt Lake. It's
Salt
just
Lake.
so, it's just the vibe there.
It's consistent.
Yeah, it's
always
consistent. And actually the secret is to call and pick it up, and they're like, it's ready immediately. And then you can just take it home to your own little house in Driftwood.
One of my
Right down the
inspectors
road.
lives here in the area, and he wanted to make sure. So I had my uncle from Louisiana, my dad from Kansas. We all went on a hunting trip down here, and he's like, "We're going to Salt Lake." I'm like, "All right, let's go." And we went. We waited and waited and waited, and I was like, but when we got inside, I'm like, "Whoa!"
Yeah.
You know, it was just
the
like,
pit.
"Wow!" The pit was amazing,
Yeah.
and that, it
Yes.
felt like Texas.
It's a good experience,
It was just
yeah.
like a really good experience.
Yeah, Salt Lake delivers a great experience for the family. You sit a lot of people on those long tables of people just
Yeah.
lined up to eat, and so
And it's a massive place too.
it is massive.
All right, so we're gonna wrap this thing up. So I just want to give a moment. Molly Andrews, Bray Real Estate. How can we find you?
So however you want to communicate with me, I am open to that.
All right,
I'm
gonna throw her number right down here at the bottom. So phone number.
email, Instagram, any social media, however my client likes to communicate.
Boom.
Boom, right there.
It's
Wherever
right
it's
down.
at.
It's right down there.
Right there. Yes.
And then Kristen Campos, how can we get a hold of you? So I know
Yes.
your Instagram handle is.
mortgage literacy. So yeah, that you can text me, email me, but if you want some just great information right now, follow Mortgage Literacy on Instagram. That will keep you up to date with interest rates, home buying in general on the financing side.
Cool. And then we're gonna flash all her info right down here. Check it out. Boom, 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 boom. And then Mr. Paul Guerrero, how do we get in touch with you?
Honestly, my cell phone number is everywhere at this point, and so just text me and I respond back. If I don't answer, I will call right back. It's kind of what I'm known for.
Yeah.
So text is the best way to go, and then cell phone number is the best way to go.
And your phone's probably blowing up just since you've been doing this podcast.
It's literally been blowing up
because
in
it's
time.
like going. So here's Paul's number down here. Bam, bam. Clayton Bailey, How to Buy a Home In podcast. We are out. Thank you.